Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time, we are discussing rare magic in the consideration of doing it for a low fantasy type of game, or in a low fantasy type of setting. So, that's the idea for this time. Before we dive into that, let's go ahead and do our announcements. I'll go first, as usual, to let everybody think about what they want to say. I'm Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and we are discussing, like I said, the rare magic. Our current goal is to get to $100 worth of support per month, and that is through any combination of Patreon, Subscribestar, locals, or direct contact, if you want to do that. And doing so gets you access to our Discord, where we share any kind of PDF or visual, any kind of content that we create that is printable for you to take to your game. We've done a Fallout Fort Smith map, and then we've done that you can use in your games, including a location list, as well as the information for the chicken races that we did. I think that was last year around this time. Something like that.
I think you're right.
So there we go. You can check those out if you want to. And that's what we've got for us. Once we hit that $100 a month subscription goal, once we hit that $100 a month support goal, I should say, we are going to go ahead and do another giveaway, probably of a multi-shot, not just a one-shot, as well as if we overshoot the $100 enough, we'll do not just some custom dice to give away, some metal custom dice. So sweetening the pot for y'all. That's what I've got. Let's go ahead and turn it over to our long time now collaborative friend Dan from Abatu Studios.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inn. I'm very excited for the continued discussion here. You can, of course, find us on YouTube, Rumble, and anywhere podcasts are found. Biggest thing for us right now is we live stream Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. During this year of themed collaborations, we will be doing a Force Forge, where we build a one-shot and Foundry virtual tabletop based around some of the ideas we discuss in the Around the Hearth chats. And then we will play test it at the end of the month with a live stream game where some of our patron and locals supporters will be players in the game. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how these all go. As of recording this, we haven't even done March of the Mechs yet. So let me know how it goes in the comments.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see all what we're going to talk about with rare items here, and very grateful to be here.
All right. And then we also have Josh from
Upper Dragon Games. I'm typically out here on YouTube talking about role-playing games, usually centering on 5e offshoots and virtual tabletop resources. I'll be taking a swing at my own 5e clone, which should be, well, a preview of it should be out by the time you are seeing this video. And I'm super excited to be a part of this chat, and I'm looking forward to talking about rare magic tonight.
All right. And he had to dip out. He was in our last two discussions, but Levi's spotlight would have been for
DM Tales, who, if you watch the other two episodes, you will get more of a rundown. He has went through, reviewed various games, uses Patreon money to get more to keep that up, has done some various chatting with people, is learning the Arcanum Forge, and I believe is doing one-shots through Patreon.
All right. So there we go. Got our shout out, got our stuff done, and we better get on it, because we've been running these times pretty... We have not been sticking to our limits. So
We were so good on the mechs about timing.
I know.
Am I too long-winded? Is that the problem?
Oh,
I don't...
It's not you. It's
mechs are
probably
just-
me. It's just, let's be honest, it's probably
I
me.
actually think it's because mechs as a topic is more concrete than fantasy. It has more genre tropes and constraints. We each time had like tech mech, magic mech, and flesh mech. And that was about.
We went along that spectrum.
Whereas this, we're like, hey, is it magic or kind of like sci-fi that they don't explain well enough for you to discern it from magic? Close enough.
Is it magic as a science?
True. A lot of hard magic gets there.
Yeah. Okay, so that means we should probably get into it since our announcements are done and our shout out is done. Grab your preferred beverages, travelers. Pull up a chair around the fire and join us sitting around the hearth as we discuss rare magic in the context of low fantasy. So, when we're talking about rare magic, I guess I'll just start right into it. When we're talking about rare magic, you can do a lot of different things to kind of limit that along there. There's what we've been talking about quite a bit, which is item-based magic. Our past two chats brought that up quite a bit. Rare magic can also be something that maybe you need location-based magic. A deserted island might be deserted because the magic there is so powerful that it has changed the way of finding it, or rare magic can be really esoteric. Perhaps you can only find this island when you don't mean to, or perhaps you can only find this magic this island when you're already lost, or things along that line. Very Bermuda Triangle. You can play around with that idea with this location-based magic. So, or Stonehenge, or places of great psychical energy might be a way to play with this idea of location-based magic and having to be there to do the magic. So there's lots of avenues in that sense. So did you guys have anything to go along with item-based, location-based, or some other type of rarity of magic that works?
You totally inspired me in that moment, thinking about the other thing would be time-based too. Do the stars need to be aligned, or do we need to be in a certain season for this magic? That it's really interesting because we had talked about a bit too of bringing components back, sort of thing. And it could be not only bringing components back, but to do a spell, you need the right components, you need the right location, you need the right time, you need the right words. So all those different things, you could really restrict it easily, not just in the simple thing of this is a magic item that you need to find and it does these things, but actually you need your components, you need your location, yada yada yada. You need to do it all in the right order. That could be really fun because then you could throw into that some kind of wild magic idea. If you don't follow the steps correctly, let's start rolling on some tables and see what happens.
Yeah, I really like the idea. I like the idea of having the rare magic being extra powerful in that because it's restricted. You could even have a really high magic campaign going, but this rare magic can be ultra powerful and not necessarily unbalance things because it's only accessible within the context that you make it accessible. So only at this particular location, only during the summer solstice, only every 100 years, whatever. And it can be huge and hugely worldly impactful without throwing off the day-to-day balance of encounters or whatever you have going on.
It does bring in that time-based aspect. Also brings in the idea of why is everybody so afraid of the full moon? Well, because there's a werewolf around, or that's when the werewolves come out. So if you can have this low fantasy, and it can even be low magic in the way that the werewolf behaves if you want to, because it's so rare. It's a once a month thing. That's not particularly rare. Happens 12 times a little more than 12 times a year, but happens, about 12 times a year. but that's still a very threatening thing. And you could play around with that. That's how would a low fantasy type of community deal with that? You can look in real world type of stuff on how they would deal with it, or you can play with that idea of if there's is actually demonstrable, like you can actually see this transformation and it's very powerful. I would think that certain lords would have a troop of werewolves. They would have their dog soldiers reference. They would have their dog soldiers that they would send out during the full moon. Like perhaps kingdoms would refuse to go to war with each other during the full moon. This cultural impact of this rare magic. They don't go to war in the full moon. Everything's too wild. The magic itself is just too wild. And they may have these dog soldiers, and perhaps you can work it like if a character gets bitten by one of them, or these werewolves. And if they're tightly controlled, and this is a rare thing, they may either be recruited or hunted down so no one else recruits them. And so they have to hide it. But if you look at the old lore for werewolves, they're pretty easy to spot. They have a unibrow, hairy palms, they behave certain ways, they have aversions to certain things. And so in a low fantasy and even low magic setting, playing around with the character tropes of the werewolf and the vampire and stuff like that can be a lot of, it can be not just campy fun if you want to be campy, but actually have effects that if there was a Strahd, a Dracula type of individual, they would be taking a lot of precautions to make sure that they did not die. Because in the whole idea of it, if Dracula dies, he goes to hell, and he doesn't want to go to hell. He just wants to keep on living. That's kind of part of the deal. That's part of making the deal with the devil that made him the Dracula, son of Dracul, son of the dragon. So you can play around with that. And are those type of things that you could understand and conceive with, conceive the ideas with. So
another interesting take on rare magic, you were bringing up psychically made or enhanced or what magic. The idea that notable political or religious figures would gain magical abilities from the thoughts and feelings of those who think of them, know about them, respect them, fear them, loathe them. That this kind of cultural magic, someone in a bid for power, actively goes on a huge philanthropy bent, in the intent of gaining magic powers to fight the king.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, does that mean what you're saying is that Persona 5 is a low fantasy psychic magic game?
I have actually not played Persona 5.
Oh, well, fair enough. I haven't played it either, but I've watched stuff.
That's fair. I don't know next anything about the plot of it, so...
Well, it actually fits in pretty well with what you're saying. The idea that they go into people's inner psychic, their inner mind.
Okay.
They gain the ability to go into people's psyche and their mind palace, and they can change their hearts, change the way they feel about things by doing that. And they end up confessing their crimes after they come back out, or changing their ways.
This is a little bit of it. Though I'm imagining that, imagine the local priest has some ability to mend and help people because the community respects this priest.
Ooh, positively influencing. Okay.
Right, it could be negative as well, right? But in that case, I'm imagining that the person gains power, it's just the type of power they gain is based on the emotions of those who know of them.
It's like your social media following determines whether you're dark side
Yes.
or not.
Well, and the thing
That's
is,
interesting.
but the thing is, you could still
wasn't
use those
thinking
powers
modern.
for good.
Huh.
It depends on what
Right.
type of power you have, though.
It's it totally makes me think of course, shouting out Supernatural because we love to do that. But I was trying to look it up. There's a name for like those deities that are created because it's in the zeitgeist of a culture and enough people believe that it actually manifests itself.
Tulpa.
That's kind of the vibe. Yes, thank you. Kind of the vibe. It's also, I don't know if it's traditionally like Greek Roman belief but the powers from the prayers, if enough people, the gods get more people worshiping them, they're more powerful. But bringing that down to a mortal level of, I really like that idea of like a political figure is becoming a political figure and wants people to worship them or believe in them because that literally gives them power.
And
I like that idea as a plot device, but that is scary.
well,
At the same time.
what's even scarier is in the example from Persona 5, they go into a politician's, like they change a politician's heart. He's running for prime minister. And they change his heart and he confesses to being corrupt. But the hearts of the people were so aligned with him that they have to go into the heart, the greater psyche of the community. They dive into mementos, is what it is. And they go down, and they have there's this. It's personified as a chalice in the game, and it contains all the thoughts and feelings towards that individual. And people don't want to rock the boat so much that they keep following that corrupt politician who confessed. And so they have to go in and change the hearts of the people as a whole. And so you can definitely play with that psychic magic thing with the rare magic idea. And that whole psychic magic being a very strong way to do that.
And if you want to, from a more mechanical blend, include that, there are different systems for, like, social opinions within groups that I would track up and then have personally planned boons for the characters. Like, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I would probably give them, like, a caster archetype. In 5e... I think, it was maybe the Dragonlance book that had like the Chains of Caster feats for 5e, if I remember correctly. Like, one gave you like a first level spell and a cantrip, and then it gave you more and some other ways to spend spell slots. And like, as they get high enough, you could give them those feats to give them the, like, you are being influenced and are gaining magic, but you're not at the level of a king, so sorry, you don't have Fireball.
I guess that brings up the idea, well, two things to bring up is like alignment-based magic, and I don't mean specifically lawful good, lawful neutral, that type of alignment, like a zodiac sign or a personality type or this or an element that you're born under. Like I'm born under the Chinese zodiac are fun because they have an element and they have an animal. So the fire rabbit. That maybe your magic is based around the concepts behind that, and then you can play with that. So that's a way to do magic, and then only certain people are able to tap into that. You could have rare magic,
like
that
seventh
way.
son of a seventh son.
Yes, yes,
classic.
very classic.
Interesting.
So there's that way to do that, and then there was. Well, I had it a second ago. Y'all play with the other idea, and I'll get to it again.
Okay. So with this, I think an important thing to decide with rare magic is just how rare is the magic. And then, I guess, not just rareness in total access, but also rareness and maybe how ephemeral it is. So, like, if we're doing, I think something that we brought up when asking about this was like, say there are magic monsters, and part of how you get access to magic is through their parts. Can you craft those into permanent items?
Indeed.
Or can you only turn them into consumables?
That was part of it, yeah. So the idea of using uses as a cost for magic. So the magic is rare because it breaks the item. Like you're containing this magic within a vessel where it does not belong. So every time you use it, it weakens the vessel until the magic dissipates away. It's like a variation on Vancian magic, which ties into the idea that we've kind of been touching on a lot, is going back to OSR type of games and understanding that mages back then, I mean, magic was kind of rare. They were, depending on which one you went with, it was a high fantasy or low fantasy, but the magic itself was actually rare. You had one spell slot as a mage at starting level, and you could do one thing, and it was sleep.
You had one spell slot and friends.
One spell slot and friends.
And friends.
And you didn't get to choose
Levi,
sleep. You had to roll for what it was.
Levi, you gotta stop doing all these zingers. Now the chat topic, the chat comment is one spell slot and friends. So there you go. So that's the comment to leave down below if you get into this far. But yeah, you had one spell slot, and a lot of the times they would pick sleep because that did the most to low level enemies. That was the right pick. There was a right pick in most situations. So
you get 1d4 hit points that you actually have to roll.
Yeah, you could literally start with 1 hit point. You could be a minion from 40. But hey, I mean, that's who you shoot for first in those minion fights. You shoot for the mages first because they will shoot fireball at you or sleep. But that's a way to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wanted to throw out, we've hit on it both, but to show that we're also looking at both a soft magic and a hard magic and still keeping it rare, because we've hit on both of those, which is good because I think you can. It's what I had talked about before on the last one of like, sit and think about it for a moment or talk with your friends about it, because like as we're talking about, we're getting all these ideas and it's still rare. Because the other option I thought about too was keeping it soft in the emotions, kind of on the psychic level of the emotions of a place or a person. Like you go to a place where there was great death and you can draw power from that place, but it might be you have to go there recently, or there is some power in a very long ago the land always remembers, but it's very soft and unclear.
That would be, depending on how that exactly goes, it might be hard to have prisons.
Interesting.
Because if the prison's around for too long, it gets too strong and the prison break of suffering is inevitable.
Yep. You don't let your magic sit around too long in negativity, or you end up with Askaban.
Depending.
And then Dementors are born into the magical community.
Oh yeah. You'd have to make it such that they felt helpless to make Dementors, because if you made them just angry,
right, they have to feel no hope.
Because if they were angry, that prison becomes its own like weapon against the kingdom.
Yeah.
Which is honestly a really great start to a campaign. It's like,
that's what I was just thinking.
The worst people were locked up. They got real pissed because they were treated poorly. They kept trying to escape, and now the whole prison is escaping, and it's going on the capital.
Or you can go even darker, and the whole prison is an entity of itself now.
True.
And it has power. It's been given psychic. It wouldn't be psychic magic, it'd be emotional magic, which kind of blurs the lines. But, you can get that. And if you go with the Harry Potter lore, it doesn't have to be mages that you make hopeless to create a Dementor. You can get a Muggle. And
for sure.
Because that's what, in the lore, that's what happened on Askaban Island, was that he was a crazy evil mage. I don't remember his name right now. You can put it in the comments below if you do. But he was a crazy evil mage, and he was literally crazy. And then he eventually went absolutely bonkers and just did all these evil experiments and would draw in Muggle sailors and just torture them and do all these disturbing magical experiments to them until they were just hopeless. And then, no one knows how, no one knows why, but that's when the first Dementors were found on Askaban after his death, when people started to discover it again. So that you can get real creepy with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want something less creepy, you can also do it with positive feelings. So
It's true.
Also, yes.
the power
Right,
of
like-
friendship.
Like, this tavern is super wholesome, and it's also the accidental med bay because everyone who goes in there feels better.
Yeah. Oh, the characteristic halfling caregiver type of little green dragon inn. There you go. Green
Yeah.
dragon. So
You know, a little bed and breakfast and therapy
Right.
and medicine. But it's just so wholesome for so long
Right.
that you can't help but walk in and get a little bit of the Wolverine healing factor.
very
Yeah.
fun. Yes, very fun.
Placebo is actually a magical effect.
Yeah, actually, in a very, like, empathic magic, or even psychic magic system, right?
Right.
Like, the placebo works because belief is magic.
right.
Mm-hmm. There's a book I read a long time ago. I can't remember its name. It was about this sorceress who rose up and got both kinds of magic. She got hard and soft magic. And she had to be defeated by... She ended up having to be defeated by her husband who married her, who was a sink. His presence nullified all magic around him. And so that's who she had to be defeated by. But the point I'm getting to is that she, through some cruel ritual done to her, got the soft, empathic magic from the feminine side, which is, in the book, that was what it was characterized, a soft feminine magic. And then the men had hard-lined magic, like magic as a science almost type of magic. And she got both, to the point where it was a really good part in the book, where once the ritual was complete, she overpowered the one who had done the ritual to her, or was involved in transporting her or something. And she looked down at him. She was causing him so much pain that his eyes were watering. And she just looked down at him. And she moved her hand, and the tears went away from his eyes. And he was absolutely intimidated to have such soft magic, powerful enough to stop his body's tears. And so you can have this, that'd be a great way to work with a villain if you're wanting to mix hard and soft magic in a rare type of way, where you have, it's low fantasy, but this person has somehow rose, whether through force or whether for good or for evil, you could say, has rose up. What is the layperson going to do? What are your heroes going to do to deal with someone who has both hard and soft magic?
Mm-hmm.
When it's rare, I should say.
I love this. I think sorry, go ahead, Adam.
You're going to have to keep that for your final thought, because I'm watching the time closer this time. So,
Perfect.
all right. This is a nice place for us to go into our final thoughts. So, actually, since you were about to do yours, why don't you do yours first, and we'll go clockwise on my screen.
Sure, absolutely. I think based on what we've talked about, my final thought is the cool thing about using rare magic. This is in general, not even specifically to low fantasies. The rare magic gives you a lot of story potential. Either classic, get the MacGuffin because it's a rare magic item, or a lot of the things we've been talking about is defining the villain story or something. And it also could give you a timeline. If you have to complete this ritual at the 100-year mark when all the planets are aligning or whatever, now you have your timeline. If the heroes can simply just keep the villain from completing the ritual and lose the timeline, then they've given the world another 100 years to wait, something like that. So the cool thing about rare magic items is it's a great story driver. It's going to inspire. Just giving the rules to this rare magic suddenly inspires a story all around it, because you got to decide why is it rare. So I think that's the big takeaway I'm getting from this chat.
And then Josh is the next one on my counterclockwise thing.
All right. So I hope I'm not retreading too much old ground that I mentioned earlier in the video, but I think one of the coolest things about rare magic is just the concept that you get to play with bigger concepts, bigger effects that you don't have to ever worry about game balance, because it's only going to happen once in your campaign. Or maybe it happens more than once, but it's a very limited resource, or whatever the case may be. You get the opportunity to play with these huge, rare powers and things that you can build story with, that you can experiment with in a long-term game without necessarily having to worry about game balance, because it's going to be gone. It'll be 100 years before we see it again, and all the characters will be dead by then, and so it's okay. It's all good, unless we fail to stop it and the world ends, and then that's new campaign.
Yep, that's
Get
exactly
ready.
what I was thinking.
Roll up new characters.
You're only going to see it once either way.
Exactly. There you go.
All right. Well, I'm technically next on my counterclockwise thing. So my final thought is, I also really like the idea of items for magic, and then because I like the Conan stories, there was very little spellcasting. Most of the things was about a MacGuffin or other thing that you had. I think that if you do employ our recommendation for powerful magical items that are consumed on use, a variation on that is to do that they're emptied on use, so that your players don't like to lose something necessarily. They're much more likely to spend a resource if they can recharge it, and you make that kind of clear to them. Maybe this Moonlight Blade, the sword of the Moonlight's Blade or something like that, is useful, and you can use it a certain amount of times, but then after it's used up, you have to let it sit in the full moon's light all night, to sit in the light of the full moon all night to then recharge for the next month or something. So they can use it. They could save up those and use them right before the moon, or all that type of stuff. But you as the GM have more control over the world then. They know when the month ends, but you know what's happening in the world. And there might be a threat come up that they need the Moonlight Blade for, but if they use it then, they won't get to use it for the rest of the month, because they're probably going to have to use all of it up. And so you'll have to, it adds a lot of fun balancing back and forth to a game that might be straightforward if it didn't have that. So. All right,
And
Levi.
a small piece of advice: once you decide the type and feel of rare magic you are going for, pick a system that plays nice. Like, it's...
Yes.
Now, if you have one system you really love and you don't mind bending its back over and playing origami, that's okay. But most of the time, there's probably going to be another system out there that fits what you're looking for a little better.
That's true.
And it's
good.
I think
learning a new system is easier than game design.
That's fair. So I think we've actually been talking about that this whole time, is like pick the system that works for what you're wanting to do. Because once you know one system, it does become a little easier to learn other systems. So don't be afraid to learn one, pick one up. And if you're just doing it for this one game, it's not like it's going to hurt anything if you mess up a rule or two, because probably your players haven't done it either. So you're good. Just make sure they know their rules that apply to them. You know your rules. I'll take care of the rest. All right. Those are our final thoughts. And we appreciate your attention. You remember you can support all of us here. Well, Levi still hasn't started a Patreon for his pie business.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. That would be very strange to have a Patreon for that. Would I just start posting pie baking content?
Oh, you know what you do?
Maybe.
You would
I need a much more aesthetic kitchen.
All right, we'll do this for the bloopers, Adam. So this is for the bloopers and for you guys watching. So I'll tell you in a minute how you do a Patreon for a pie baking business. But right now, we hope you have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Yeah. A one shot or
When
something.
you're setting up the streaming setup and hooking up 15 computers and your brain's not functioning right, that's a lot of fun. So,
I bet.
Oh, the sympathizing.
it's like, don't you have technical support? I'm the technical support.
Maybe you like
I'm Bugs
mid-fantasy?
Bunny in that stupid cartoon. All right, folks. So, listen, thank you so much. I had a blast for this. I'm sorry. I really would love to have done the Dangerous Magic. That would have been a blast, but I do need to bounce to be responsible to my day job. So, but thank you so much for the invite. I hope I can do it again sometime.
Yep.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Oh,
man.
good. Good
Next-
to
No
meet you.
problem.
Next
It was a
month
blast.
is, let me see, this month is April Arcanum, which will come out in April. So May would be next. May is Modern May. So doing modern games. And
Interesting.
considerations for that. So that's next
Okay.
chat topic if you think of anything to bring up.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Y'all too.
Good night.
Good night.
You too? Rest well.
Thank
Yes.
you. Bye.